Ladies and gentlemen, Iran is under attack.
Right now, if you look at a satellite feed of the Persian Gulf, you will see a massive accumulation of gray steel floating in the water. These are American aircraft carriers, destroyers, and amphibious assault ships. To the average observer, this looks like the prelude to a war. It looks like the United States, the world's reigning superpower, is finally getting ready to crush its oldest adversary in the Middle East, Iran. On paper, this fight shouldn't even be close. The United States spends more on its defense budget than the next 9 countries combined. We have stealth bombers, hypersonic missiles, and a global logistics network that can park an army anywhere on Earth within 48 hours. Theoretically, the Pentagon could turn Tehran's military infrastructure into dust before lunch. But here is the strange reality that no one in Washington likes to talk about out loud. Despite the threats, despite the sanctions, and despite 45 years of intense hostility, the United States has never pulled the trigger on a full-scale invasion. We invaded Iraq next door in a matter of weeks. We occupied Afghanistan for 20 years. But Iran? Iran sits there, untouched. To understand why, you have to realize that what you are seeing on the map isn't just a country. It is a geographical fortress designed by nature to kill armies. It is a civilization that has spent 5,000 years learning how to survive the end of the world. The reason we haven't invaded Iran isn't a lack of will. It's because military planners know that Iran is the ultimate trap. It is a country located at the exact crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, sharing borders with 7 different nations and controlling the most critical waterways on the planet. Invading Iran wouldn't be a war. It would be a logistical suicide mission that would make the conflicts in Vietnam and Iraq look like training exercises. To understand why this invasion is impossible, we have to stop looking at the politics and start looking at the rocks. Let's turn off the political map and look at the terrain, because this is where any invasion plan goes to die. If you are an American general planning to take Tehran, you have a massive problem immediately. Iran is effectively a fortress protected by a moat on 3 sides. To the north, you have the Caspian Sea and the Zagros Mountains. To the south, you have the Persian Gulf. But the real nightmare is the west. Running along the entire western border, from the coast all the way up to Turkey and Iraq, lies the Zagros Mountain range. These aren't just rolling hills. This is a jagged, chaotic wall of stone that acts as a natural shield for the Iranian interior. This terrain is so rugged and difficult to cross that it has stopped empires in their tracks for centuries. The most brutal example of this happened in 1980. Saddam Hussein, the dictator of Iraq, looked at the chaos of the Iranian Revolution and thought he saw an opportunity. He launched a massive invasion, aiming to capture the oil-rich province of Khuzestan and crush the new Iranian government. Saddam had a powerful army, and he was backed by almost every major Arab state. He thought he would be in Tehran within weeks. Instead, his tanks hit the geography. The Iraqi army slammed into the foothills of the Zagros and got stuck. They couldn't maneuver. Their supply lines broke down. For 2 years, they struggled to push past the border region, only to be ground down by the terrain and the resistance. Eventually, Iran didn't just stop, they pushed the Iraqis all the way back across the border. This historical lesson is critical. If the US military wanted to drive to Tehran from the coast, they would have to march through narrow mountain passes that are perfect for ambushes. Every valley is a kill box, and even if you manage to blast your way through the mountains, you aren't safe. Waiting on the other side are the central deserts, the Kavir and the Lut. The Lut Desert is one of the hottest places on Earth, with temperatures recorded as high as 70 degrees Celsius, 158 Fahrenheit. Moving hundreds of thousands of troops, tanks, and fuel trucks through a literal oven after fighting through a mountain range is a nightmare that no general wants to plan for. The geography forces you to fight the land before you even get a chance to fight the enemy. But mountains don't shoot back. People do. And this brings us to the second and perhaps more dangerous layer of Iran's defense, its demographics. There is a fantasy in the West that because the Iranian government is authoritarian, the people would welcome an invasion. We assume it would be like Iraq in 2003, where the structure crumbled quickly. But Iran is not Iraq. Iraq was a relatively new country with artificial borders drawn by the British. Iran is a civilization state with a cohesive identity that goes back millennia. We are talking about a nation of nearly 90 million people. That is 3 times the population of Iraq when we invaded. The vast majority of the population is Shia Muslim, creating a unified religious and cultural identity. While the country has diverse ethnic groups, Persians, Azeris, Kurds, Baluchs, they are bound together by a deep sense of nationalism. History has shown us, time and time again, that when a foreign power steps onto Iranian soil, internal political squabbles disappear. The population unites against the invader. Before 1979, Iran was actually a close ally of the United States. We sold them fighter jets. We had deep diplomatic ties. But the Islamic Revolution changed the DNA of the country. Ayatollah Khomeini didn't just overthrow the Shah, he completely realigned the country's geopolitical soul. He declared Israel the #1 enemy and severed all ties, turning the US embassy into a symbol of resistance. This shift wasn't just political, it terrified the surrounding Arab monarchies. The kings and sheiks of the region saw the Iranian Revolution as a threat to their own power, fearing the ideology would spread across the border. This isolation forced Iran to adapt. Surrounded by enemies, Saddam in the west, the Soviets in the north, and hostile Arab states in the south, Iran realized it could not survive by fighting a conventional war. They knew they couldn't beat the US or Israel in a head-to-head tank battle, so they decided to build a different kind of army. They decided to export their defense beyond their own borders. This is where the calculation for an invasion changes from difficult to catastrophic. Iran has spent the last 4 decades building what they call the axis of resistance. It is a network of proxy groups and militias stretching across the Middle East, designed to act as a forward defense shield. The logic is simple. If you want to fight Iran, you have to fight your way through 4 other countries first. It starts in Lebanon with Hezbollah. This isn't just a militia, it is a paramilitary force armed with over 150,000 rockets and missiles, all pointing at Israel. Then you have the militias in Syria, like the Fatimiyun Brigade, and Iraq, like the Badr organization, which are battle-hardened and loyal to Tehran. And recently, we have seen the rise of the Houthis in Yemen. This network allows Iran to project power without ever deploying a single Iranian soldier. We saw this strategy in action perfectly in early 2024. When tensions flared, the Houthis in Yemen started using cheap drones to attack commercial shipping in the Red Sea. These drones cost maybe $20,000 to build. To shoot them down, Western navies had to use advanced interceptor missiles that cost millions of dollars. It is an asymmetric nightmare. Iran supplies the tech, the proxies take the risk, and the US is forced to bleed money and resources trying to keep the shipping lanes open. And if an invasion actually started, that network gets activated fully. Suddenly, US bases in Iraq and Syria are under fire. Missiles rain down on Tel Aviv from Lebanon. Oil refineries in Saudi Arabia are targeted by drones from Yemen. Iran has effectively taken the entire region hostage. They have created a situation where an attack on Tehran results in the Middle East setting itself on fire. However, the ultimate weapon in Iran's arsenal isn't a missile or a drone. It is a narrow strip of water called the Strait of Hormuz. Located off Iran's southern coast, this strait is the most important choke point in the global economy. About 20% of the world's total oil supply, and a massive chunk of its natural gas, passes through this tiny gap every single day. The Iranian city of Bandar Abbas sits just 70 kilometers away from this choke point. Iran has spent decades mining these waters and lining the coast with anti-ship missiles. If the United States invades, Iran doesn't even need to win the military battle. All they have to do is sink a few tankers and close the strait. If that happens, the global supply of energy collapses. Oil prices wouldn't just rise, they would skyrocket to levels we have never seen. The economies of Europe and Asia, which depend on this energy, would grind to a halt. The stock markets would crash. It would be a global economic depression triggered overnight. This is Iran's ultimate leverage. They hold the world's energy artery in their hands, and they are willing to squeeze it if they feel an existential threat. So, we return to the map. We see the mountains, the deserts, the millions of people, the proxy networks, and the economic kill switch. When you add it all up, the picture becomes clear. The United States could invade Iran. We have the firepower to destroy their military, bomb their nuclear sites, and degrade their infrastructure. But we cannot conquer Iran. The cost of victory is simply too high. It would require a draft, trillions of dollars, and a long-term occupation that would make the Iraq War look like a minor skirmish. Western nations know that a direct attack risks backfiring in ways that could destabilize the entire world order. Even with the ambiguity surrounding Iran's nuclear program and missile technology, the calculus of deterrence holds. Iran remains unconquered not because it is a perfect nation, but because it has mastered the art of being impossible to digest. Between the Zagros Mountains and the Strait of Hormuz, Iran has positioned itself as a fortress that is too painful to attack and too dangerous to ignore. And until the geography changes or the cost of war drops, the aircraft carriers will continue to sail in circles, and the invasion will remain a scenario that exists only in war games, never in reality.